Exactly 40 years after this split up, their entire back catalogue became available to download for the first time, putting the Fab Four back into the charts.
All this week we're hearing from people who vividly remember they brushed with the Beatles, starting with two groupies who were briefly promoted to the group.
Oh yeah!
In the early 60s, Beatles fans were notoriously passionate.
Wherever the band went, there were hordes of screaming fans chasing after them. It must have been incredible to see.
Beatlemania seemed to take over a whole generation of teenage girls. By the late 60s, the fans were just as numerous, but a little less loud. Fans like Gayleen Pease and Lizzie were still as dedicated, but now waited quietly outside Abbey Road studios for a glimpse of the band. Lizzie had travelled from Brazil just to see the Beatles.
I was crying afterwards, and the roadie came and hugged me and he said, "Why are you crying?" I said, "I'm from Brazil, I'm 15, I got here today, I saw the four Beatles." and he gave me a Kit Kat, I still have the wrapping. And he said, "Don't cry, love, he'll be here tomorrow, you can see John again."
I was doing A-levels at the time, and I had quite strict parents, so I was allowed to come to the studios 3 times a week, but I always had to be home at 10:30.
Sounds like a boyfriend. I'm sorry, that's the sort of thing the parents say to their kids. 3 times a week, back by 9.
Exactly.
Armed with their Instamatic cameras, the girls came to Abbey Road whatever the weather. Lizzie and Gayleen were even on first-name terms with the band.
You guys got to see the Beatles a lot. What were they like?
They would stand and they would chat, and they would sign autographs for the 100th time and pose for photos.
What it meant to be a 15-year-old and have
15, 16
your
year old
idol look you in the eye and say, "Good night, love." You know, that kept me going for...
In February 1968 at Abbey Road, the Beatles were working on a John Lennon song called Across the Universe.
As they slip away across the universe, pools of sorrow.
And Gayleen and Lizzie were about to enter Beatles folklore.
Paul came out and said, "Can any of you girls hold a note?
Hold a high note.
Hold a high note."
Yes.
And straight away, Lizzie and myself said, yes, we can.
Do you know your friends say, yeah, me?
No. And then Mal Evans, who was the roadie, came out and asked us to go into the studio.
Both Gayleen and myself were very calm because we were used to seeing them every day. If we had never seen them before, we both would have fainted. 4 Beatles, George Martin, you know.
Were you nervous?
Excited,
yeah.
And they made us feel relaxed.
Yeah.
The girls were soon called on to sing with their idols.
You're singing on a mic with your hero.
Yes. John said, "Both of us have to sing into this." And I said, "Okay." So I got close, and then he said twice, "Closer." And I, "Yes, John." And then he said again, "Closer." And John was here. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. And my heart was beating so hard, I thought, it's going to come out in the mic.
Gayleen, I'm sure you were supposed to be at home. What did your parents say?
Well, I had to phone them in the break and say, "I don't know whether I'll be home at 10:30. And they said, "You will be."
Did you say, "I'm singing with the Beatles"?
I did, yes.
I don't think she cared very
What
much.
did they say?
They were quite strict. They weren't really impressed by that.
What I'd love to do now is have a listen to the vocals.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Nothing's gonna change my world.
It's too high for me now.
You can do it, come on.
Nothing's gonna change my world.
See, you can still do it all these years later.
But when you think at the time, you know, the millions of girls and women that would have, they just wouldn't believe that you would be invited into the studio. And it seems
Unreal.
But it was very real. The 5 words, "Nothing's gonna change my world," did feature in the song when it appeared on a charity record more than a year later.
Nothing's gonna change my world.
Abbey Road is still a place of pilgrimage for many fans, but I don't think they're quite as dedicated as they were back in 1968. And how lucky were Gayleen and Lizzie to get to sing on their idol's record.
Nothing's gonna change my world.
That is a great story, isn't it?
Isn't it?
I love how giddy they still are about the whole thing.
Yeah,
What
exactly.